Hello. Great to see so many people here, both startups and corporates. I got this new question from you. Why is it important for Sweden that startups scale? I think it's quite obvious. But I will still try to address this question from a more policy perspective and add some more flavor to it. The first one, of course, is that we want the employment and export, and we want those companies to grow to contribute to the society, to the economic growth of society. And this is really the major reason why we are investing in R&D, in education, in seed money, in grants in those early stage companies. There is a challenge, however. And that is that the growth of those companies is really not that secure. Very often it's not realized. Sometimes the growth can be really huge and be spectacular, but often the business might not really take off, or the business idea might be wrong, so they need to close. And so it's really, there's still high risk when it comes to startups. And it's high risk when it comes to the return for society. One thing that happens quite often, especially if the companies are successful, is that they got acquired. And this acquisition is a little bit troublesome for us, because because from the society perspective, what we have seen is that it's the best startups that get acquired, the startups that can really be scale-ups, that can be those big companies that will provide export incomes to Sweden and provide employment opportunities. Many times it is American companies that have been buying those companies, and in research that have been done has shown that within 3 years after the acquisition, 80% of the IP and 80% of the people have left the country. So this is really not a trend that we would like to see, but it's very little we can do about it. We have also seen an increased interest from China and Japan and other countries to do the same thing. There is, however, some good news. And the good news are that when we start to get some scale-ups and big startups ourselves, they start to buy other startups. They start to buy Swedish startups, they start to buy international startups, and all of a sudden we are getting a balance in this acquisition game. So we're not only selling our stars, we are also buying some pieces of gold from other nations. So this is one of the reasons, the second reason why we need scale-ups in this ecosystem. And although we think that large corporations, established corporations, should buy startups, I think it's quite different for many of you to do that, because the culture is so different. But if we have scale-ups, they know how to integrate and really use the knowledge in those companies. The third reason why scale-ups are so important for Sweden from a policy perspective is the notion of recycling. All startups and all scale-ups, need competence, they need capital, and they need customers and partners. And what we can see is that when those startups grow into more mature scale-ups, people are leaving those companies with experience on how to grow a company from startups to scale-ups, and are using this knowledge to help other startups to be successful. When there is an M&A, when a company is sold, money are released that is entered and going back into the system to fund new startups and new ideas. And there is an increase in partnership and customer relationship between all those startups and scale-ups, so that will fuel this system. And it takes quite a long time for an ecosystem to build this kind of recycling mechanism, because you need to have both small companies, medium-sized companies, and scale-ups and unicorns to be successful. But we have reached that level, and that is the reason why we are doing so well. There's yet another reason why scale-ups are important, and it is that they are one of the most important magnets for international competence, capital, and international investments. When it comes to competence, we see that many of the scale-ups in Sweden have more than 50% of the employees that are non-Swedish. People want to come here to work for our scale-ups. We see capital that is really coming into the ecosystem because the international financing houses, they see that it's boiling. There's a lot of interesting things happening in Sweden. We would like to be part of this. We would like to invest our money here. And when looking at one of the biggest, most important drivers for international companies to decide where to put their next business and where to establish their next international office, the reason that we have all those scale-ups and startups and the ecosystem, a vibrant ecosystem of a lot of competence, is one of the major aspects why they want to be here. So, but there's yet another reason why scale-ups are important. And this might be the most important one, and this has nothing to do really with the ecosystem in itself. It has to do with the survival and the competitiveness of our current industry. If you look at this example of Volvo and we have a lot of transport companies in Sweden that has been really good at building transport system and cars and trucks on combustion engines. Right now, the challenge is tremendous because now they need to change the whole technology platform that they are building their business on into an electric platform. And with that comes also the challenge of autonomous cars and connected cars. And they realize that we don't have this competence. We don't know how. We need to reset our whole industry. And it's not only about that they are lacking the competence that they need within their own organization. It's also that they need to have a totally new set of subcontractors. If you look at the number of small companies that have been involved and is backbone of producing those cars all over Sweden that have been great at molding parts in those combustion engines, and look at what kind of competence and what kind of subcontractors they need in the future, it's totally different. Many people might say that the manufacturing industry is dying, but it's not. But it's restructured. So what we see is that the people within those manufacturing companies might decrease. But at the same time, we see a new ecosystem of industrial relevant service industry building up around them. And those companies are hiring a lot of people. And it's companies dealing with sensors, with big data analytics, AI, robotics, 3D printing, etc. It's different kind of subcontractors than what they were used to hire. And it's subcontractors that is really not only subcontractors, they are co-creation partners. So the relationship is very different as well. And you can say that the kind of digital transformation that many of the industrial companies goes through, there are two different. One is about efficiency, when you are doing more or less the same thing but more efficient with IT. And then it's enough to educate and secure that you can educate your employees. But for this other kind of transformation, the transformation that require totally new products and totally new production systems, then you need some other ways to handle this. And then that's why all those scale-ups and startups within areas of new technology is so important to have in your ecosystem. Because if you don't have it here, they might move to another place where they have this ecosystem of scale-ups and startups that are relevant for their new transformation. And this is also so the challenge is really that we have we have this ecosystem of startups and scale-ups that works very well and that can really create growth and that have this recycling and that are attracting talents into the system. And then we have the established industry. So the biggest challenge that we have in Sweden that we have been working on for a long time is really how to secure that they meet each other, because we see that established industry, they really need a lot of the competences that we have in the startup ecosystem. And the only way to build this subcontractors and partners and co-creation ecosystem that they need to survive is really to secure, to be part of feeding this system with your challenges, with the needs of tomorrow. Because if they do that, and Ignite is one of the reasons. Ignite is really the proof of this. The industry will get solutions, and they need to thrive. We will see an ecosystem of scale-ups around those industrial companies that will secure their transformation, secure that they can stay and thrive and be competitive in Sweden. And that is why Ignite is so important, because Ignite is the tool we have to really foster this new ecosystem where we can secure not only that we have the startups can be scale-ups, but also that we can secure that we get the scale-up ecosystem that our current industry needs to be competitive and thrive for the future. So the 5 things that I would like to point out then why it's important that we have scale-ups in Sweden is, of course, employment and export, to secure that we have a balance between acquisitions and M&As, recycling, for international attraction and digital transformation as probably the most important. So as you see, this is so much more than just creating jobs, just creating export. Scale-ups, and especially tech scale-ups, innovative companies that you are all here today, are so important for the future of Sweden.